Walk through a scenario for event sourcing. The scenario or the situation is that our original project has a customer, and we've been working with this customer object for some period of time where we've been storing events for them. And this is what the customer looked like through the initial stage of the project. So keep in mind, we will have events stored up for all of these processes here. So we have a customer register, and the customer would be registered, and they would have a first name, last name, middle initial in that command. So therefore, we would store an event with the middle initial. We would create views with the middle initial, and we had a couple other. That's touchy. Couple other of events, including change the first name, change the last name. Those didn't affect our middle initial, but we have changed middle initial, which does change that with a command, and then stores the event with the new initial, and then updates some views with the initial. And so a period of time goes on, and then somebody from the business comes to us and says, we don't want to use middle initial any longer. It's not capturing enough information. We have too many John A. Smiths, and we need to actually get that middle name. So what we want to do is, if they had a middle initial in the past, we would like to use that as their middle name. But if we have new people coming in, we would like to give them the ability to enter their full middle name. And if they're changing, then we want them to change the middle name, not change the middle initial. So our new set of stories would look like this. A customer registers, they enter our first name, last name, middle name, and the event is recorded with a middle name. The views show the middle name, and then we have the first name editing, last name editing. We are not going to allow the middle initial. This is going away, so change middle initial going away. Change middle name is a new feature, so we'll have a new command and a new event for the middle name changed, and our views show middle name instead of middle initial. So that is the gist of what we're trying to accomplish. And with event sourcing, changing commands and events is not really a trivial process. So if we look at our existing database and just look at what our customers looked like in this event store, we have a customer registered. We stored their first name, last name, and middle initial. And of course, now we're wanting to change that. And if we look at the views that we had, this is a list of all the customers in our system. We also have views for each individual customer. So looking at those, we see middle initial there. Looking at this all customers view, we see each one has a middle initial. And now we're going to change the code to do middle name instead of a middle initial. Keep in mind, we are not going to delete existing events, so the events that are here will always have middle initial, and we can't change that. Those are facts that happened in the past. We just need to deal with the fact that that's what it was, and now we want to have views that show a P for a middle name, and if we were taking in new data, we would allow them to add their full name, but for those that are already there, we will use P as the middle name. So what do we have to do to accomplish this? First thing is we need to change our commands so that we are no longer allowing people to insert initials. So we won't ask for a middle name. We will change the way we handle views so that when we're looking at existing events, we will say if you had a middle name, if you have a middle name in your event, then we're going to use that. And if you don't, then we're going to try to use your middle initial if you have that. So that's the logic that we end up putting in to accomplish this. I have, let's notice that we have leases and views, and these were the two old databases, and they still have data in them. So what I did was I just created a new leases here with leases 2 with nothing and views 2 with nothing. And so we'll just pull up our code, which is now pointing to the new projection destinations for leases and views. And I'm going to run this projection engine. So we're just waiting on this to kick off down here. And that's running. So that will generate a new lease for the change feed here, which is going to start back at the beginning of time. And we don't have to go back to the beginning of time to start a new change feed, but in this case, we do want to process all our old events and get new views for them, so that we do have to do it in this case. So we've got our leases there. And we should see views start appearing here. And they are. And on our all customers view, we now have middle name instead of middle initial, and it's using the value that was there for their initial because there is no name on the event for these people yet. These are the old people. And in just a second, we'll look at what happens when we add new people. In fact, I'm going to go in here and just, while that's running, for the sake of time, I'm going to go to our test for customers, and I'm just going to run to register a new customer. And that registered the new customer. And I have done a few because I've done this a couple of times. But let's look at what happens with this test. It's creating a first name, last name, and middle name. This test used to be for MiddleInitial. It's sending it to a new customer constructor, which takes a middle name. This used to take a middle initial, but we can change this because we're saying that we don't want any more customers to have middle initial, so we are saying it's okay to change this constructor. If I go dig into this, we've added some business rules here that says a middle name can't be more than 45 characters. And when this happens, we're gonna apply a customer registered event. We added to that event. So notice here that it still has a middle initial that parameter there, and we've added middle name. This could have been done differently, but I did this for backwards compatibility. So there's a lot of ways to handle versioning, and I chose what I think is the easiest way for this particular situation, which I think is usually the right thing to do. So when we have a customer registered event occur, there is this constructor. It takes these parameters. If there's a middle initial, it will set that to the middle initial property, and if there's a middle name, it sets it to the middle name property. So this is just when we pull events out of our event store, it gets put here. So we really need to be able to handle middle initial here if we want to be able to then populate it into middle name later. What else do we want to look at? Save. Let's see, I don't think there was much here. There's nothing here that we need to look at. The other work came into the projections where we were really just adding the property for projection. So let me look at the customer projections. We changed this customer view to have a middle name. It does still take in, like we wanted to make this non-breaking, so we're allowing middle initial to be passed in and middle name, and we're checking to see if there's a middle name, use it, otherwise use the middle initial. When registered, try to use the middle name, otherwise use the middle initial. So those are the kind of changes we had to make, and let's see what's going on with our views that we're building here. Let me flip this so that we're getting all the newest stuff at the top. So here's the ones with middle initial that are now going into middle name. But if we look at the newest customers, they are having a middle name, so they're getting populated by commands that take in a full middle name. If we look at this view, down at the very bottom of it, we would see that we were getting people with MiddleInitial, and now we're getting people with MiddleName, and we're handling this in a non-breaking way for both the old people and the new people. So that is just a really quick view of how you can handle events when they change without breaking the system. So hope that helps. Thank you. And there is a code repository that you can go look at my code repo for this and dig back through old versions of this code so you can see where we used to use initial and now we use name if you're so inclined. Thank you.